Hi guys. So today we are going to give an explanation for how important the SAT and ACT exams are. All right. And as you can see, I'm taking the slides from our Instagram page where we have a highlight for all the different kinds of topics that are very important in the admissions process. And someone asked, as you can see on the top there, how important is the ACT or SAT in the admissions process? So I replied to this person on our stories, but I also went into a more in depth explanation of why it's important and how it's important. So I wanted to share this with you guys now. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and read through this and just add any detail if I need to. So you can go back to whatever part you didn't understand, or if there's something that I'm missing or that I didn't answer, you can feel free to comment either here on our video, or you can always send us a DM through Instagram. All right, so how important is the ACT, SAT in the admissions process? In one word, very. It determines how competitive you are for a specific college by showing how proficient you are in reading and comprehension and math. If you have a low SAT score, you should apply to colleges that take students with your scores and lower. Anything higher will be a reach. All right. So I just want to add to that. Not only does it determine how competitive you are or how proficient you are in reading, comp, and math, but it also shows how college ready you are, like what level you're on. So it's very important for that reason because SAT is supposed to be at a college level. The reading comp specifically, the math honestly, it's the topics aren't at a college level because everything that you will have to solve will be at a high school level, but it's the analyzing part, the word problems that show your college level in the math section because it is a little bit tricky. You have to really understand the questions. So really it's all about reading comprehension because the reading, the grammar, and the math have a lot of reading in them. And you have to be able to analyze and you have to be able to pay attention to very specific things that they're asking you and not get confused. All right, let's go to the next slide. So here I continued my explanation because I kept getting questions about, are you sure it's like really that important? Or like, I've heard, college admissions representatives say that it's not that important, that it's just another number, that your whole application gets looked at. And so I have to say this. Guys, when I say that the SAT is very important in your application, I mean it. I know that college representatives tell you that they look at the whole application, blah, 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 but you want the truth? You need a good SAT or ACT score to compete with the thousands of other highly qualified applicants that are applying. All right? So really, like, any school will tell you, no school is going to tell you, oh no, we don't take students with this SAT or lower, because that's not good for them. First of all, they don't want to discriminate against anybody, right? Because then that'll just create a bunch of arguments within parents, amongst parents and the institution. So they're very politically correct. They don't say anything that's going to get them in trouble. But aside from that, they want more students to apply to their schools. Why? Because they make money off of application fees, right? They make money from you guys applying to their schools. So it's not in their best interest to be like, you can't apply if you don't have the score, because then thousands of students won't even try, right? And also, there are exceptions when there are students where they get a little bit lower than the school would like, but their GPA is super high, their leadership is super on point, they've done amazing things while in high school. And so the colleges sometimes makes exceptions for students like these. All right. So that's why they say these things. But the truth of the matter is that SAT and ACT scores are very, very important. You want to be able to compete. Imagine how many kids are applying from all over the nation. All right. So here we go into a more in-depth explanation. So let me explain something first. Yes, there are colleges where you can get into with a low SAT or ACT score. Yes, there are colleges you can get into with no SAT or ACT score, right? For the college optional, for the test optional colleges. Yes, there are competitive colleges that can accept you despite having a low SAT or ACT score, right? I just talked about that. But these are the exception, not the rule, okay? Again, you have to think about it like this. If you want to increase your odds of getting into a certain college, these scores have to be super competitive, all right? Don't hope to be the exception, all right? Because being the exception is really, really unlikely. It can happen, but it's really, really unlikely. But here is the catch. A good SAT score is very dependent on which schools you're applying to slash want to get into. So when I say that SAT scores matter, it is because they allow you to compete. But everyone will be racing in a very different field, right? Because if you're trying to get into Harvard, your SAT score has to be through the roof, right? It has to be like more than a 1520 or 1550, right? It has to be really, really, really up there because the other kids who are applying to Harvard are also getting those scores, right? But let's say you're applying to a school with a 30% acceptance rate, or even a state school, right? Or any school that's not really one of the Ivy Leagues or the super, super competitive colleges, then the SAT score that you need to get is not going to be the same as if you were applying to Harvard, right? Instead of trying to get a 1520 at least, you might be trying to get a 1250, right? Or a 1300, or even just a 1200, right? If those are the schools you're aiming for. So your score, your goal, right? What you have to get is going to depend on which colleges you're applying to, which ones you want to get into. All right. So I hope that makes sense and I hope that helps. A student who wants to get into an Ivy will need a high SAT score because the caliber of applicants will simply be at another level, right? Like I just said with Harvard. An SAT score of 1500 to 1600 will simply allow you to compete and not necessarily increase your chances because the Ivy League is so selective. High grades are already expected, all right? So again, right, if you're applying to Harvard, if you're applying to Stanford, if you're applying to MIT, Columbia, Cornell, right, a high SAT score is not going to set you apart from all these other applicants, right? It's not going to help you to stand out. It's not going to increase your chances. It's simply going to allow you to compete. You're going to go on the pile where it's like, okay, this person has good SAT scores. They're competitive. Let's look at the remaining parts of the application, right? So whereas if you, let's say, get a 1500 but you apply to state school, then that's really going to make you stick out because people who apply to state schools generally have lower SAT scores, all right? So what will make you stick out from the bunch will be your leadership, passions, etc. All right? So this is where it gets really, really tricky. If you do want to stick out when you apply to Ivy Leagues or highly selective colleges, because there are many, many highly selective colleges that are not Ivies, right? You want to focus on your leadership and your passions, right? Extracurricular activities and stuff like that. All right? And your essay, which we'll go over on another day. But that does not mean that a student with a, sorry about that. But that does not mean that a student with a 1400 or 1450 SAT won't be accepted if they have gone above and beyond developing their passion. Maybe they created a very successful business or nonprofit or conducted amazing research. Anything above a 1400 can still be considered a decent score for a student who is recognized by the admissions committee as an extraordinary exception. All right? So again, this goes for the students that I'm saying that I was talking about earlier, where Sometimes maybe you don't get a 1500, you don't get a 1550. Maybe you didn't have the resources to go get prep somewhere, or maybe you're just not a great test taker, right? But you really tried your best. And so 1400 and above is really honestly a decent score. But you have to have other factors working for you, right? So the other factors are factors that make you look like a leader, make you show that you are a leader, not make you look like one, really show that you're a leader, right? So these are some examples, right? Creating a successful business. There are tons of kids who create successful businesses in their teenage years, right? Or starting a nonprofit, or conducting research on a topic that you really, really, would love to explore further in college. Or if you're a writer, writing a book, getting it published, selling, thousands or millions of copies. I mean, these are things that kids do, okay? And these are the things that set you apart, especially when you have a lower SAT score. All right, these are the extraordinary exceptions. In this case, for this specific student, the SAT wasn't everything because he or she had other amazing things to bring to the table. All right, and his SAT score was decent enough to make that exception. All right, so you still have to be decent, okay? But if there are other things pulling you up, right, then this is the case where the admissions officers are like, well, we look at the whole application. So if your ACT score isn't that low, right, and you have other things that really bring you up, then these are the places, these are the times, these are the scenarios where they make exceptions. By the way, this doesn't only apply to Ivy League colleges, but to all top, let's just say top tier universities and liberal arts colleges. All right, so this is applicable to all those highly selective colleges, right? That's very hard to get into. But if, for example, you're applying to a college that has an average 1250 SAT score, then a good SAT score of 1300 or 1350 is going to be very important for you to have if you want to increase your chances of getting in, right? So again, these would be, let's say, a state school where you need a 1200 or 1250 and you go above and beyond, right? Maybe 50 more points or 100 more points, then that's going to make you stick out. If you have an 1100, could you still get in? Yes, you could have other things in your application that made you the exception. But again, a high SAT score or ACT score allows you to compete instead of hoping you're an exception. It all depends on the colleges you're applying to. All right? Hope that makes sense. The SAT isn't everything. It can't be, right? It's just one test taken on one day out of 3 years you're in high school. But whether you and I like it or not, it is used as a measuring stick against all students. If it's not as high as you would like it to be, strengthen the other parts of your application. You might just be the exception your dream school is looking for. All right. So again, obviously, if you don't have the SAT score or ACT score that you want, continue your prep. If you're not already a senior, right, you have time. Continue your prep. Don't stick. If you've been going to a tutoring place and it's not working for you, try other things. All right. There's Khan Academy, right, which is free for everyone. So you can do tons of practice on there. There's also a program that we Road to Uni recommends, right, which is Prep Expert. We have the link in our bio on Instagram, or if you don't know how to get there, or you don't want to confuse it with any other scam companies, because there are scam companies for everything online. If you want the original link, let us know. You can send us a DM, comment, or even an email and ask us for the recommendation. We will send you the link to this course that really, really guarantees is not ours, all right, but it is our affiliate link that we have tried. Actually, we have bought a course and tried it to make sure that it worked for students, and it's really, really cool. It guarantees a score increase for the SAT and ACT, and I don't know of any other program that guarantees a score improvement or your money back, so it's really, really great, and they have really good strategies. So if you've tried everything else, or maybe you're just starting, start with that. Highly recommended. But also, aside from that, do other practice. Don't just stick to one. You can always do, like I said, Khan Academy, which just has free resources, and and just do as much as you can because the SAT is about practice and strategy. All right. And while you're studying for all that, make sure to do things that really, really interest you in high school. All right. And we'll go over that in another video. All right, guys. I hope this helped. And if you have questions, please let me know. And I will see you in another video. Make sure to follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Road to Uni. We answer all DMs. Any questions you guys have from students, mainly for students because parents don't really write to us on Instagram. We do have a Facebook group on Facebook as well. It's Road to Uni again, and we have a page, Road to Uni. So if you're a student watching this, follow us on Instagram, Road to Uni. And we look forward to answering any of your questions and making sure that the process is as easy as possible for you. All right? Take care, guys.